again, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And Trustee Eastman, if you'd pass that along, we'll get that
send it.
done and inserted. Okay, first order of business under the Finance Director's report is an approval of the bills. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Smith.
Aye.
Trustee Clayton.
Aye.
Trustee Dickin.
Aye.
Trustee Eastman.
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Trustee Hollander.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Director Vasquez, do you have anything for us this evening, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I have just a few items to bring up tonight. One, our appropriations ordinance will be on the agenda for the March 20th meeting. The appropriations are based on the budget. I've circulated a draft of the budget to the board, and I've asked for any comments or questions to be sent to me by March 7th. I've already received some questions from several of you already. Thank you for that. After March 7th passes, I will finalize the documents for the budget and appropriations, and I'll list any changes that have been made since the draft you all received. As we wrap up our budget, the audit season will get into full swing. Our auditors, Selden Fox, will be out here for field work in early April. We've already had an initial kickoff meeting with the auditors to discuss documents we can get them early so that we can keep the process moving in a timely fashion. And then another reminder of a note that was brought up at a previous meeting, that Northbrook has informed us that their water rates will be increasing effective May 1st. So we will be bringing a rate adjustment to the board to make sure that we are at least keeping pace with the rate increase with our own water rates. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments for our Finance Director? Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for all your work. I know budget's been quite something to tackle. Okay, moving on, Treasurer's report. Our Treasurer is not with us this evening. Director of Community Services, Director Witt, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of items. As you know, the department continues to be very active in a lot of areas. I've got an update in two areas in particular. Administrative adjudication. We had success last month. On the 21st, we will have our second hearing date. We do have, at this point, 7 citations that will be going forth. Most of those are related to the condition of a residential construction site, which has a lot of safety issues that we're trying to promote doing better and trying to get some things resolved, but it's taking time. And this is a particular case where we believe that this type of process is necessary to bring certain projects into compliance. And the other one, we've had some issues over at the shops and Colonial Court, but I'd like to give maybe an upbeat report on a couple of items where we're developing I think a solid working relationship with one of the people over at Avalon. They've expressed an interest in making sure that they're working together with us, trying to get the center into compliance with whatever they're doing. We have a commitment in doing that, and we've been seeing some results. One of them is Baby Vegas. That project is moving forward to some extent. We've reviewed the electrical distribution drawings to actually split the service that used to go to strictly the Panera space. Since Baby Vegas has been carved out of that space, they need to have 2 separate services. We've reviewed those drawings. In fact, we got the revisions in today that were approved today, and ComEd will continue on their schedule to split that service either Thursday evening or Friday this week. So hopefully that will move forward, and then that project can get moving. We noted, and I think the mayor actually noted, that the detention basin again this year north of the shops is apparently has the outlet pipe clogged again. I went over there last week and indeed found that the water level is way above the invert of the outlet pipe. Spoke with Jose over at Avalon, and he's committed to getting that taken care of no later than March 22nd. Sooner if they can get the people to come in. Third on that list, Avalon is working with the landlord to revise the location of the accessible ramp from the parking stalls that are in front of the Tandoor restaurant. Unfortunately, Tandoor wants to have outdoor dining again this year like they did last year. However, the location of that invalidates the code compliance of the accessible ramp, because essentially they have a fence there at the top of the ramp, which precludes people from doing anything other than go up the ramp and into his restaurant. So he's got it very strategically placed, but it doesn't allow customers that need wheelchair assistance to get anywhere else within Colonial Court. So the landlord has evidently agreed to make changes there. There are quite a few violations of the accessibility code which have been noted and passed on to them, and they indicate that they're working on gaining compliance for us. That's all I have tonight.
Trustee Hollander.
Is there a way that the trustees could get some type of report from the adjudication process? I ask for two reasons. One is, over a period of months, it would give us some idea of the types of things that are going to adjudication. And for a second reason is that occasionally we get feedback from people who speak here or send in letters about a problem they have, and it goes to adjudication, and then at least I don't know what the result was. So is there a place where those decisions or some type of identification of what the issues are?
The outcome of each case is recorded in a docket, which is prepared for each month's case. So each citation is listed individually with regard to the property, who the citation went to, the date that it is heard, and the disposition, whether it was either dismissed, non-suited, whether the respondent was found liable, and whether or not there was a fine assessed to the case, whether it was carried over or whatever. So that is being tracked and certainly could be put together. That is public records.
A copy of the
Is it
docket.
accessible to the public? I would think it should be, but I don't know how to access it.
I'll tell you, why don't we look into that? Because a copy of the docket would seem to me that might be something that we could forward after court. And we'll check with how that might happen for you,
Okay.
because I believe court records like that are public documents. But again, we'll run that by council.
I
as
would
well.
want to check with council just to make sure that
Yeah.
we're good with disclosing that.
Are there any other questions or comments for our director? Okay, moving forward. Consultants report, our attorney's not with us. Engineers report, Engineer Smith. We have a presentation this evening.
We do. Real quick, two things before Carolina takes over. One, the road program is going to go out to bid next week. Again, the whole shift to trying to get it into the spring. So we're going to go out to bid, open it up, and hopefully start when the plants open mid-April. So we've been in the background. We've been working with SSAs. We have everyone on board now. So it's just going out to bid. And then the Saunders Road water main construction continues. It's going as smooth as possible. I'll knock on wood on that one. And it should be completed in the next couple of weeks. With that, I will pass it over to Carolina.
Do we have any questions for our engineer before that? Okay, thank you very much. Yes, please.
Yes. Okay. My name's Carolina Cho. I'm with Gaywalt Hamilton. I handle the MS4 program for the Village of Riverwoods. What is MS4, you might ask? So this is related to the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency's ILR 40 permit, or in layman's words, the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer Permit. And the intention of the permit is to prevent and mitigate for any pollution within our stormwater. So I give this presentation every year. It's a requirement within the permit. It's for educational purposes and also just to give the opportunity to the public as well as the board to ask any questions that they may have. So I'll give a short presentation and then have some time for questions at the end. If you could do the next slide. Okay, so just a little description of what the permit entails. So we're required to do these inspections of outfalls, ditches, waterways within the village. And those include looking for any visual indicators of pollution. So that could be oil, that could be debris, soap suds, and then also just structural issues as well. So erosion around pipes, maybe chips or cracks or missing grates. Next slide. We typically send our interns out during the summer months to perform these inspections. And what they do is they look for any indicators, such as the ones listed on the slide, any odor. Usually a good indicator is the sulfur kind of eggy smell is typically not a good sign. Color, plant growth, so excessive vegetation. And then if there's water flowing at the outfall, which there shouldn't be ideally. We're going out in dry weather conditions, AKA not post rainfall. That gives us the best idea of what exists on a day-to-day basis rather than after a rainfall event. But if there is flow, we indicate, how fast it is, if there's anything floating within the water, things along those lines. So these are a few pictures taken by our interns this past summer of stream banks and basins within the Village of Riverwoods. We did not find any signs of illicit discharge, which is a good thing. So every year what we do is make sure we take a photo log and include that in our summary report that we end up sending to the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency. A big thing, so the Des Plaines River Watershed Work Group has been working on a NARP, so a Nutrient Assessment Reduction Plan. There's a requirement by the EPA to have phosphorus levels below, I believe, 0.1 milligrams per liter. So we hired, well, when I say we, I mean the Watershed Work Group hired Geosyntec as a consultant to do some water testing over the past couple of years, and that resulted in what you have here on this slide. So they came up with these findings based upon the testing that they did, and there's a huge report that they put together and submitted to EPA that I'm happy to send along to the mayor if anybody's very interested. It's very detailed, it's interesting, but it's long. But basically they sent their findings to EPA, and hopefully EPA will respond well to that. I'm assuming they'll have a few comments to send back, but I don't anticipate them getting back to us anytime soon. So we'll see what the results are of that. The permit, the MS4 permit, is renewed every 5 years. And what that means is the EPA goes back and looks through it and says, what improvements might we want to make? Do we want to remove, update, anything? And last year, they said on their website that they would have the new permit released in March of 2023. That did not happen. So instead, they just changed the year to 2024. We'll see this month if that actually happens. If they do come out with a new permit, then Gaywalt Hamilton will write a new stormwater management program plan, which basically says the Village of Riverwoods fully intends to comply with all the things listed within the permit, so long as obviously we go through that, and those are reasonable expectations. So that's where the MS4 program stands for the village at the moment. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any of the trustees have questions? A copy of your report might be useful. We've recently or heard from the RPC, and information is a Sustainability and Climate Action Plan Committee. I'm not sure if this is something that would be of use to the committee, but it would be nice for us to have it on hand in case they thought they wanted to take a look at that.
You're just the annual report that we put together?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. Are there any other comments or questions? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions before we move on for our village engineer? Okay, moving on, our village ecologist is not with us tonight. Plan Commission report. Chairman Brightcoff, please.
Good evening. The Plan Commission will meet this Thursday, March the 7th. We will again discuss plan unit developments, and hopefully at our next meeting on April the 4th, we will have a draft ordinance to review on plan unit developments. That's my hope. That is my report. Any questions?
Okay, thank you very much. And Our Zoning Board of Appeals Chair,
Ta-da!
Chairman Graditor.
For the first time in, maybe it's 3.5 years, I actually have a report for the board that the ZBA will be meeting next Monday night at 7:30. And Mr. Witt is going to lead us through a discussion on side yards and rear yards and the appropriate building thereof. A lot of the people who are on ZBA have never been to a meeting. And so this is an educational segment to bring them up to speed, just in case there might be a real case that we have to deal with somewhere along the road. Thank you.
Are there any questions for our chairman? Thank you so very much. Next, our police report, Chief.
Thank you. So I've been away for the last couple of weeks, so I did not prepare a activity report. I'll have one for the next meeting. I do have a few items to mention, though. These will be in the press release coming out tomorrow, but we did make one officer made a traffic stop on March 3rd early in the morning and found that the occupant of the car was wanted out of Wheeling. There was a warrant for his arrest for strong arm robbery, so we were able to take him into custody. Also on the 3rd, an officer stopped a car on Portwine and determined that the car was stolen after doing a check on the VIN number. We did not arrest the driver of the car because he had just purchased the car in Chicago, and apparently the person he purchased it from had stolen somebody else's identity and then was able to obtain a title to the stolen car from the Secretary of State. And the person thought he was buying a legitimate, it was a legitimate title, but that wasn't the case. So we're not doing any more investigation on that. We advised the victim who was driving the car to contact Chicago Police Department and make a report with them that he basically was sold a stolen car. Then on March 4th, yesterday, we responded to a home in Thorngate where the homeowner said that a neighbor known to her was stealing mail out of her mailbox, and officers responded and found the suspect nearby and took him into custody. He removed some mail out of the mailbox and was opening it and photographing it. So he was charged with misdemeanor theft, and he'll be in court later in March. Additionally, I want to just talk a little bit about our flock cameras, our license plate readers. Since I last reported to you about a success that we had with it right after putting them, having them go live, we've had a few more successes. No major crimes were solved yet, but back in February 11th, we had a resident who was having an issue with a company that was doing some work on his car. They were actually installing a bay device for people with DUI convictions, and he wasn't able to get hold of them and get his car back. And we were able to locate the car by using cameras. It was located in Wheeling. Once we found it on the flock cameras, in the area, we were able to trace it to there and get him together with the person who was supposed to be fixing the car and got his car back. So there was nothing criminal there. We didn't know that until we looked into it, but we were able to get his car back. We also had a criminal damage to vehicle where we were given a description of the car that committed the criminal damage, and we were able to find it at a nearby one of our cameras when it had gone into town prior to going to the person's house and putting a dent in their car, purposely putting a dent in their car. So we're in the process of getting a warrant on that. Also on February 11th, Mobile has been having an issue with some kids coming into their gas station and just throwing things around and stealing candy and food and that sort of thing. The owner didn't want to sign a complaint, but we only had a description of the car because his cameras didn't pick up the license plate. But based on what his cameras saw, we put the information into our flock camera system. We're able to identify the car out of another town, and we were able to identify the juveniles and talk to their parents. And so their parents are aware of it, and they were told not to go back to the mobile station in Riverwoods. And then on March 4th, just the other day, there were several burglaries to auto overnight in Deerfield. And our officers went to assist. The burglaries were in progress. Somebody saw them going through cars. And through a Ring camera in Deerfield, they were able to get descriptions on 2 cars that were in front of the house. And then one of our officers put that information into our flock system and found that the cars had both just driven by our Lake Cook camera coming out of Deerfield. And we didn't find the cars, but we did get the license plates. And one of them was registered to Deerfield. So Deerfield went over there and found out that they had a stolen car. That they didn't know it, but the people who were doing the car burglaries had stolen the car in Deerfield. The other car actually had a California license plate, and we passed that information on to Deerfield, and they're able to look to see where else the car has been, and hopefully they'll be able to have some success in solving their car burglaries. So that's what we've had since January when it went live. So, you know, we are having some successes with it, and I think we'll continue to. So I think it was a good investment by the village to approve that. So, and that's all I have.
Thank you.
I just have a
Oh,
quick
Trustee Jamerson, please.
Can the officers access that system from their squad vehicles?
From their squads, from their telephones, from their desktops.
That's great.
When we have a car set off an alert, I get alerted on my phone, and I can just open up the alert and see a picture of the car passing the camera and why it alerted. And we do get some false alerts, you know, because it doesn't quite read the license plate exactly right, or it's because it might be a different state. But we've actually had some stolen cars come through. What we're more interested in are stolen cars that are coming through and going into our neighborhoods at night because they're obviously up to no good. And if we can at least locate them, they may not stop for us. A lot of them don't now, but at least we'll get them out of town before they can commit a crime. But we've had some stolen cars go by us, you know, and when we get out there, they're not there, but they're like on Lake Cook or something. You get all kinds of things on Lake Cook. So, yeah, so we're getting a lot of use out of the cameras.
Trustee Hollander, did you have a?
If they're done with the chief, I have a question on the BZA. I was too,
well,
it was
okay,
too
are we-
slow to ask.
Oh, sorry, I was too fast. Just a minute. Any other questions for our chief? I would just ask everybody to note it on April 2nd, we're going to have a presentation of a plaque. There was, our police department has gotten an award that not many police departments have for training and all. It's a certification. So be present, please. If
It's
not
the-
for that, for other things that are
it's the
certainly important. But this is very
voluntary-
important to our community and to our force.
It's the voluntary police accreditation program, which I mentioned to the board a while ago when they were here assessing us, that everything went well, and we'll be receiving our award in the April meeting.
Yes. Okay, we'll back up a minute. You had a question for the CBA, is that
Yeah,
right? Trustee Hollander.
I was surprised we're going to actually have a BZA meeting, but I don't know how I would have known about it. I just checked the website. It's not on the website. And is this a public meeting or is this a private
Yes.
meeting?
It's a public meeting. It will be posted. And I thought we'd. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Trustee,
Sorry,
Director
Mayor.
Witt, please.
It is posted at the door at this point, but I don't believe it hasn't gone to the website because Vivian wasn't here and I just didn't get it to her to do that, but she can handle that in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So we'll still make the timeframes.
Yeah, but otherwise we may not have known about it and some of us may want to, attend it otherwise.
It will definitely be on the newsletter this week. so it would have been up then. But anyway, point well taken, and we'll get to it. All right, Fire District Report. Chief Kruger isn't with us this evening. Information, items, and comments from the president. I would just simply remind those of you who have to file a statement of economic interest, please do so. It's due on the 1st. And also at this time, I'd like to ask Tiffany from the RRA to come forward and just give us a little brief summary of Arts in Riverwoods, those of you who weren't able to make it. Oh, Tiffany, you know what? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Hello?
Okay. Yes, much better. Thank you.
Well, I just wanted to thank the board and also Mayor Ford for supporting us in our basically the rebirth of the Arts in Riverwoods. Our team considered it a massive success. We did sell out all of our tickets, which was about 100 guests. So it was just an amazing experience. We had pretty much all age range of people, many of which had gone to the original Arts in Riverwoods and fondly reflected back on how it was originally going home to home, and were pleasantly surprised what a wonderful venue the Ravinia Green was, and the food and the live music. So it was what we deemed a great success, and we are adamant about continuing this annually moving forward. It has completely re-energized our community, and our hopes are actually that we redo this next year at Village Hall. So we will be bringing that discussion to the table, and hope that we can consider this as a new location for that. Each of the artists sold art, so that was also a major success. We had everything from watercolor to oil on canvas to pottery and jewelry, and each of the artists were pleasantly surprised that they sold art. We are looking for new members to join our committee for next year's planning. As you know, everyone on our team is all volunteer-based. So you don't necessarily have to join the board, which tends to be a larger commitment, but you can join a smaller committee, which is just specific to one of our events, which is Arts in Riverwoods, or we have an upcoming Family Fun Day in June, or we have our amazing Halloween event that we host here as well. So that's all I have. I don't really have any more numbers at this point. We're in the transition of our treasurer since Jill has moved on to her post. But financially, we were very pleased with the results as well as the attendance.
And we would be happy to put it in our newsletter and then a link to your website as well. So if we can help publicize it that way. Are there any comments or questions? Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, moving on to new business. The first item of new business is the adoption of a resolution endorsing the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus Greenest Region Compact. Do I have a motion for approval of this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? This was an outgrowth of our discussion last week, feels like last week, last month, last meeting, about the formation of the committee by the RPC, and this resolution is in support of that activity. Okay, if there are no comments or discussion, roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Trustee Dickin?
Aye.
Trustee Eastman?
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson?
Aye.
Trustee Hollander?
Aye.
Trustee Smith?
Aye.
Resolution 24-03-02.
Thank you. Next item of business is approval of a proposal for replacement of valves and meter for the Thorngate Reservoir. Director Witt, can you lead us through that, please?
Thank you, Mayor. So for the benefit of those that don't have a copy of the packet with them, back in 2022, Gewalt Hamilton was informed by the village of Northbrook that there was a steady flow of water through the Thorngate Reservoir fill valve, even though we thought that the valve and subsequently the meter as well and a shutoff water flow valve, though we thought that those were actually closing all the way, they were not. This flow of water was recorded by Northbrook's meter, but it never showed up on the village's meter. GHA tried to get the pump rebuilt. The contractor that came out to look at it discovered that the valve itself was not capable of being repaired. It was also discovered that the 8-inch gate valve ahead of the meter and a flow control valve wouldn't shut off completely, creating a difficulty in order to make the necessary repair. So GHA sent out to get bids. They received 2 bids, one from Dorner Company and one from Dom Mechanical Industries. The low bid came in at $22,761. Adding that to the cost of the meter and the control valve brought the total of the project within the original estimate for the total work of $54,000. So we're recommending that a contract be approved in the amount of $22,761 to Dorner Company to make the necessary repairs. So the total of the $54,000 is included within the proposed 2024 budget. So in essence, we're doing well on this one.
Are there any questions? Trustee Jamerson, please.
I noticed in the Dorner quote that one of the things that's not included is a disposal of any removed equipment, but they're removing the water meter and the fill valve. So what's going to happen to those? I mean, shouldn't they be taking those away? It's under items not included in the quote. It's not a big deal. I'm sure it's not tons of money, but I don't think we want those things sitting around. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the 5th line under items not included in the quote.
I do see that at this point. We will work with Dorner to make sure that that number, that those things are taken care of.
I'm sure it's not a big deal, and there's probably scrap value, so they'll probably be more than happy to take them away. But
it's probably worth more than what they are on site.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, to be clear, we are approving the contract with Dorner and the value, the replacement value of the valve and the meter.
Correct.
Together, and
Correct.
those two together are $54,000.
It's just under 54,000. It is.
Not to, let's say not to exceed.
It's not to
54.
exceed.
So the motion is for both items.
Yes, for the contract and the equipment.
I'll make the motion that we move forward with this for
Not
just
to
on,
exceed.
not to exceed $54,000.
Yeah. Okay. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Are there any questions? Trustee Hollander?
Do we have an estimate of how much water was lost and what it cost us? I'm just wondering whether it's better for us not to repair it. We're going to repair it, but
I don't think it's not necessarily the water that has been lost. It's water that's not been. We're paying for the water.
Right.
It's just that we do have a differential in there. So for the lower amount that we visualize, if we really put it into retrospect, we would actually be paying more for the water than what we actually are, because we're pulling in more water than what we're getting billed for.
Okay.
So do I have a number for you? No.
No, I just,
But it's not overflowing anywhere, right?
No.
I mean, it's just.
It's
gets
just
used.
leaking. It's just a valve that doesn't shut.
Yeah.
In essence.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Trustee Dickon?
Aye.
Trustee Eastman?
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson?
Aye.
Trustee Hollander?
Aye.
Trustee Smith?
Aye.
Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Motion passes.
There are a number of items here that are following their approval of agreements, and I would ask our Director Witt if he could lead us through those.
Certainly. Mayor, these are several service agreements that we have with various companies that are providing engineering and other types of services for the village. Each one of these is basically a continuation of work that they have performed in the past, some of them like Ewald Hamilton for many years. I'll just run through them. These agreements are subject to attorney review for form and for content such as insurance, things like that. The first one would be for Tesca Associates, who provides planning services for the village. The next would be Pinestone Lawn and Snow. They are not providing snow removal services, but they will be providing emergency tree removal service in the event that a tree crosses a roadway or something like that and gets called out by the police department at any hour. Gewalt Hamilton Associates, they do general engineering plus more than we really know. Christopher B. Burke Engineering, they handle our wetlands reviews. Baxter and Woodman Natural Resources, they handle our woodlands reviews. And BNF Construction Code Services, Inc., who have been providing inspection services on almost all of the projects that are occurring within the village, unless I can get the time to do them. And they do plan reviews for us, but that's on an as-needed basis. So that's the summary of the scope of work that's being handled by these. And we look forward to an approval on these so that we can not only continue with these services, but this also helps us get our accounting measures in line by having the agreements in place.
Yes, Trustee Jamerson.
I just have a question on the inspection services one, and I'm trying to find it here, but
Item H.
yeah, it's towards the end. I'm just trying to find the, I was under the impression some of the bills I saw a couple of years ago when we first started working with them, they were billing us by the hour. And specifically what I remember, and maybe Director of Finance could help me if he's familiar with the bills, to the 100th of the hour, which is great if that's what they're really doing. But this one seems to be more of the fee schedule, which is on page 81 of 84. Looks like it's a lump sum, if I'm reading it correctly for the.
Rick, which page are you on?
I was on page 80, the fee schedules are like on 80, well, the actual fee schedule for the inspections is on page 83 of 84. It's the very second to the last page of the packet. And there, I'm sorry, it's not a lump sum, it's a per square foot price. And for commercial and a lump sum price for dwellings. If they're under 3,200 square feet and over, it's 22 cents a foot, I guess. And I'm fine with that. I just wanted to make sure that that's what we're expecting and what we're kind of based our budget on. I'm sure that it still falls within our fee schedule and that we're covering this, but.
Right. That is an area that I know that we have a need based on a report that's come through.
100%.
We do need to bump the costs that we are charging for the inspections.
Okay.
We do charge based on the cost that is there, and I believe that Vivian has that under control, but that is a thing that we are reviewing with the fee schedule overall to make sure that the costs that are there are in line with these services agreements that we have in place in front of us.
And don't get me wrong, BNF's been doing a great job for us. So I'm not arguing the point that we shouldn't approve this. I just wanted to make sure that we caught that somewhere along the
And
line.
I think our relationship with BNF has been recast in the last months.
I'm sure it has. But good people. Okay.
Oh, Trustee
thank you.
Holland? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Trustee Hollander, please.
I looked to see if there was an end date. Are these for 1 year or are these renewing? Because I just couldn't see the time frame.
We renew these, we will be renewing these on an annual basis. The
Do they
intent
come-
of these, I think that these should have been listed as 2024 rates.
So they'll come back to us in a year.
Yes.
Thank you.
Trustee Smith.
So are the hourly rates and the other fee schedule, are they have an inflationary measure to them, or are they the same as last year, or do we have any sense of that?
We have some. I took a look at two in particular. I know for Baxter Woodman, their contract for 2024 is based on the same rates that they charged in 2023. Looking at the other and the largest the largest portion of our invoices going through GHA. There is an increase in those numbers. Some of those, depending on, I didn't do this for every individual category, but I did note that the rates for the basic general engineering went up anywhere from about 0.65% to 6 point some percent. And then the principal's rate went up about a little over 9%, but I don't recall seeing an invoice at all in the last 6 months that's had a principal's charge on it. So yes, they have gone up somewhat.
And do we feel that's appropriate?
As with anything else, there's an additional cost of services, for providing services, for salary increases, for cost of business, for maintaining vehicles and equipment, et cetera. So, yes.
Yeah, I guess my question more was the 0.65 is not terribly concerning, probably less than concerning, probably, I would guess, below market average. 9% for principal, but if we don't utilize those services, seems higher than we would expect, or at least higher than I would expect in the consulting world. So it's more just a question of, do we feel on average, is this inflation or better, or do we think it's inflation or worse?
I think it's, personally, I look at it as on an average basis. If you average out the overall billing, when you take a look at the one that's at 0.65 and the others that creep up toward the 6 point, which are the ones that are doing a bulk of the work that we're doing, you're probably averaging, my guess would be somewhere between a 3 and a 4% increase, which is not out of line with cost of living increases and salaries.
If I might add at this point, the directors have been looking very carefully at all of our bills, with an eye toward a little bit better project management. And that, I believe, is going to result in some tightening up and perhaps some reduction in overall consulting services. And I think that it's been a really serious effort here. So we understand that there have been relationships that have been recast, BNF, for example, because now we're more able to do things in-house than we were before. And now we have a finance staff that is able to really take a good solid look at all of the bills that come in and try to assign those very carefully to projects that have been approved by the board. So looking forward, you can't really look back on this kind of stuff. Live and learn, but going forward, I think it's a new day. So if I could just add that to the discussion, I think that's important for the trustees to know what kind of work that senior staff and Moses Diaz, who is in the finance department, have been doing on this front. Trustee Jamerson, you had a point earlier.
Yeah, I have a comment to make. First of all, I don't think that the 6.5% is too far out of range. In the past, since I've been doing this for a little while, I've seen this come by almost every year. And I would like to say that in many years, their rate of increase was actually well below the cost of inflation. So their increases were less than they should have been probably for many years. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they should pile on and make it up. I don't think they are, but I will also say that they have a corporate knowledge of the village that would be very, very hard to replace. While I'm always one to think about looking at other proposals for services, I don't think this is a situation where we should even necessarily consider that unless the prices get crazy, because of that knowledge that they have of the village.
Trustee Hollander, please.
Not to spend the village's money willy-nilly, but we brought this up a few years ago. Because the village is fairly small and we don't have a lot of staff, we are required to use outside sources for many of the functions that other places can do much less expensively. And consequently, we end up maybe paying more than we would if we had internal staffing, for which I'm very comfortable if it costs us more, because we still need those services. So it's something, because of the size of the village, that we may end up paying more for something that would be available less expensive in a larger village. So I think it's part of the consequences of our size. We just sort of have to accept that.
Right, point well taken. Trustee Clayton, please.
I have a few questions. On the Gowalt-Hamilton agreement, there's a tremendous emphasis in the agreement on GIS, and I was just curious about that and why that was so.
I'm going to defer straight to the source.
We have, in the last year or so, really emphasized to consolidate and make our GIS services more streamlined so that the end user understands what we're providing. A lot of times it's just like, oh, it's just GIS. And people really didn't understand what really that entails. And so our division has really come in and honed into specific items that they work on. So when we gave the scope of what GIS is, they have developed that in order to educate everyone what they actually do. So they have a little bit more information on the GIS because they wanted to come through and actually show like what exactly we do. Because, back in the day, Pat just ran it. You guys needed a map. Yes, Pat. Somehow you waved a magic wand and it appeared. But now we got, unfortunately, I'm not the map lady, but what we want to do is really kind of emphasize what you guys are getting and what we provide for the GIS, because you do have a relatively robust GIS system, which is fantastic for utilization of information and really what that comes into. So there's not really a question on, oh, it's just GIS. Well, now you guys actually really understand what that price comes into and what that entails, instead of just, oh, it's GIS.
Okay. Another question. I don't think these things were specifically listed in things that were covered by the agreement, but things that you have done in the past, just like we saw tonight, are regulatory compliance, regulatory monitoring, and so on. Does that fall under, and grant visibility, things like that, that falls under the scope of this agreement?
So like our MS4 program, correct, is and your LMO, anything that's a regulatory to keep up a certain status of it, that's what we proceed forward with. And, something that we can always adjust and add some sort of verbiage into it. But realistically, what we're trying to do is kind of what we've been doing. So, right, your MS4, your LMO, anything dealing with their water system, we will maintain and keep that regulation moving forward. The grants, we haven't really discussed too much about our feasibility and what we can do for grants, but it's something that we can talk, outside for.
A few more, with your permission. I'm kind of curious on how this is going to work exactly. Let's say I want to do a campus program and we've come up with a design and now we need an engineer's opinion on probable cost. Are we going to require Gowalt then to write a proposal to give us the opinion?
Don't think it's a proposal. We would certainly go to them and approach this as a project and ask for a cost estimate so that we would have a budget to work with, so that we knew what to expect. And then we would try to monitor that budget and stay within that.
Taking the TSCA agreement, for example, is there any upper limit on the spending under this agreement?
It's open-ended to the extent that we don't control it and that we don't that we don't, I don't know if the word is check in or monitor, but understand that when we go to these consultants, and it's not well, even if it's a specific project, but that when we use our consultants, there is a cost to doing that. And I think that instead of, oh, we'll just, call so-and-so and we'll get an answer, understand that there's a price to be paid for all of that. So no, there's not a top end on this, where it's self-limiting, if you will. We ask for projects. Are you going to be working on the development of something within a TIF district. Well, what does that take and how do we go about estimating how that works? And sometimes some of those things are very open-ended. You don't, when does it start? When does it stop? How about a sore point? The parking plan and traffic control. That's one of those things that we have to look at when the bills come in on a monthly basis. Where are we? What are we doing? What are we asking for? A lot of this is an awareness, and trying to establish a discipline that I don't believe that we had heretofore the ability to execute on. But I think we do now. I think we do. So no top end, it's a consultant agreement, just as there's no end date. There's reasonable notice, we're going to discontinue the service, that kind of thing, or they can resign, either way.
So basically, we have delegated the authority to Director Witt to authorize spending under these agreements.
I don't think we've gone that far. I think, again, when it's a project and it goes to, and we come to the board and say, here's a project, here's what we need to do, here's what we think it's going to cost. And there you go. Director Vasquez and I are working on a procurement policy that would help guide those kinds of things so that I have a spending limit, $5,000. So if there's some kind of project or some kind of consulting advice that we need and it falls under that, and we feel it's important to what's going on in the work, I have the ability to authorize that. So we'll be trying to refine that and bring that to the board so that there's the ability to move forward instead of relying on board meetings, but with certain guidelines associated with it. I might have a higher spending limit than the directors do, for example. So this is evolving. I hate to say evolving, but it is evolving. It is evolving. The collection and looking at the letters of agreement like this, we would come, one here, one there, one here, one there. But this kind of lays it out for the board. These are the consultants that are very basic to what we do here, and they're very important to the operation of the village. And then trying to bring that together, project management, financial management, paying attention to the budget. So that's where the efforts are focused.
So to the extent, well, let me rephrase that. Is it possible to use the budget as a control mechanism here, that if the spending in any one of these areas begins to exceed the amount we've budgeted, then that should be brought to the attention of the board?
It would be, yes, that would be a request to revise the budget.
And we intend to do it that way?
I'm sorry, say again.
And we intend to manage it that way?
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
Thanks.
I mean, again, tighter controls. What are we doing? Looking at what's going, what we need, where we're spending, who we're spending it with, all of those things. Trustee Hollander, did you have another point?
To
Yes,
tag on
please.
to what Trustee Clayton was saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, over the last 3-4 Plan Commission meetings, TESCA's been doing a lot of work with them. I am sure that considering the amount of hours they put in before the meeting and after the meeting, and then setting up a lot of demonstrations for them to go out to look at things, there must be 40, 50 hours in the TESCA input on here as a minimum, which is significant when you start looking at 50, 60 hours of consulting work. I have no idea how that's approved. I mean, I think it's totally appropriate because they've done a great job. But here we've got a situation where we may have a bill in the, I don't know, $30,000, $40,000, and I'm not sure that anyone needed to say okay to that, other than the fact that our village attorney said, I think we ought to have TESCA help us with this. And I'm not saying it's inappropriate, but there is no control
I
on
understand
that.
what you're saying.
So that's really got no top end and no authority sign off on it. And I don't even know what the bill has been or will be for the total work that they've done, which again, I think has been very valuable. I don't want to
Yeah, I
give a
know. I
different
understand what you're
impression.
saying. I understand what you're saying. I think we should take a look at it. And I can't tell you honestly that we have taken a look at it. We were kind of starting with the big bills, the really big bills, and trying to, figure out how we're going to go about this. And that Tesco wasn't among the really big bells.
This one will be.
It's all relative. So, Trustee Jamerson, please.
And I guess first of all, has the village attorney looked at all of these agreements?
Not yet.
Okay.
So he did say at the beginning, subject to attorney review.
One of my questions, and it's evidently something that's common in this situation because almost every one of them has it in their proposals or whatever you want to call these, is limits of liability. And in almost every case, the limit of their liability will not exceed their fee. So if their fee is $10,000 and the issue is $100,000, they're only going to cover $10,000. And I've run across this in our business with subcontractors who have tried to have their limit of liability be limited to their fees. And I think that may be something that Bruce should
We can have counsel take a look at
ask
that.
about because,
Yes.
and I know it's probably in their boilerplate thing, but I'm concerned about that. It's just.
Attorney Hubert is going to review each of these. Similar like with the Baxter Woodman, he did review the work that's going on for the woodlands management. He had more than several questions with regard to that, and he actually changed some of the added language to them. I fully expect that he's going to have an attachment to go with each of these that define some of the criteria that we need in here.
Yeah, I mean, that's what insurance is for. They should have insurance to back that up. So if you could make sure that he looks at that, that would
Yeah.
be great. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or discussion? Shall we take these individually? Okay.
Well, I don't think we could, I mean,
I'd
our
love to
attorney
make it.
hasn't
Wish of the
reviewed them
board.
yet.
I'm sorry, say again?
Our attorney hasn't reviewed them yet, so I don't know that we ought to take
Well, if,
any action on it until the attorney has taken a look at it.
well, I think that we've
Am I
done
wrong in that?
Well, I think that we've done that before. And
Okay.
if he doesn't approve it, we're not signing it.
Right.
We have the ability to sign once he's reviewed. I
Approve
think,
it subject to his review.
subject to his review. I think we've done a number of those things.
Well, as much as I hate to say this, then we probably should do them separately in
Okay,
case.
that's fine.
Don't you
I
think?
think that's fine. Okay, for the approval of the agreement with Tesco Associates, Inc., do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Okay, is there any further discussion on Tesco? Roll call, please.
Trustee Dickon?
Aye.
Trustee Eastman?
Aye.
Trustee Jemerson?
Aye.
Trustee Hollander?
Aye.
Trustee Smith?
Sure.
Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, next on the list is the approval of agreement with Pinestone Lawn and Snow Emergency Tree Removal. Do I have a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on Pinestone? Roll call, please. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Trustee Dickon, please.
Yes. These fees don't include stump grinding, am I correct?
I'm sorry, say again?
The fees that are outlined do not include stump grinding, I'm assuming.
Stump
Stump grinding.
Stump grinding, I couldn't,
I would guess not, because typically if it's, especially in an emergency, they just cut it off so that it's not blocking the pavement or, I mean, is that not correct, Chief?
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
when they
when
take
you
a tree down.
When you call Pinestone to take a tree down because it's hazardous or it's an emergency, they don't grind the stump. They just cut the tree off and get rid of it so that it's not blocking the street or being hazardous to anybody, right?
Yes, we also pass on the cost to the homeowner.
Right.
And let them know that they're responsible.
But they don't grind the sub, which is
No.
probably.
But I
We're not
assume
gonna make
so.
it
So the
pretty.
reason I brought this up is under contract terms, it says, this contract shall be revised if contractor discovers unknown obstacles underground and is not able to perform fully. What obstacles may we foresee underground that will prevent tree removal? I mean, just,
We can remove the underground.
Okay.
There won't be any.
that's it. That's all I
That's
have.
it. Are there any other comments or questions? Roll call.
Trustee Eastman?
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson?
Aye.
Trustee Hollander?
Aye.
Aye, which I've been noted, that sure is not the right answer.
It sure is not the right.
Aye.
Trustee Clayton?
Aye, sure.
And Trustee Dickon?
Okay.
Motion passes.
Next on the list, approval of an agreement with Gaywald Hamilton Associates, Inc. Do I have a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
Is there a second? Are there any further comments or questions on the Gaywald contract? Okay, just so you know that that does not include the utility billing, which we will bring at a separate time and a separate. Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Jamerson?
Sure.
Trustee Hollander?
Aye.
Trustee Smith?
Aye.
Clayton?
Aye.
Trustee Dickon?
Aye.
And Trustee Eastman?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, next on the list, approval of an agreement with Christopher B. Burke Engineering Limited. Is there a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
Is there a second, please? Trustee Clayton. Okay, are there any other questions or comments on the Burke agreement? Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Hollander?
Aye.
Trustee Smith?
Aye.
Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Trustee Dickon?
Aye.
Trustee Eastman?
Aye.
And Trustee Jamerson?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, next on the list, the approval of an agreement with Baxter and Woodman Natural Resources LLC. Do I have a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, are there any comments or questions on the Baxter Woodman agreement? Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Smith?
Aye.
Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Trustee Dickon?
Aye.
Trustee Eastman?
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson?
Aye.
Trustee Hollander?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Last on the list, approval of an agreement with B&F Construction Code Services, Inc. Do I have a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Can I ask a point of order? All these motions should explicitly say, subject to attorney review.
I have that in there.
Okay.
Yes, yes, exactly. Thank you for that. Trustee Eastman, did you second that?
Sure.
I thought it was, I had Trustee
I
Clayton.
don't know, I was facing this way.
I had a second.
If y'all
I'm adding
had
a
sat
whole new
closer, I
element
could
to
see.
this.
All right, are there any other comments on the BNF? Okay, a roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Trustee Dickon?
Aye.
Trustee Eastman?
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson?
Aye.
Trustee Hollander?
Aye.
Trustee Smith?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, no old business. Moving on to visitors wishing to address the board. Nice to see the Rafts here. I haven't seen you in a while. Hope everything is well. Oh, good for you. Good for you. Oh, really? Okay, Chairman Greditor.
This is resident Greditor speaking now. And it's a point of curiosity, and I've passed it on to a couple of people. On Sunday, I had a couple of deer in my front yard, a very large, beautiful buck, and a yearling who was red tagged with some kind of a tag and a radio transmitter. I tried to track down where it came from. Lake County Forest Preserve had no idea. Lake Forest County Preserve told me to check with the department, the DNR, because they said they had heard something about a project in Cook County where they were tagging deer. I called the DNR yesterday. I was supposed to get a call back. I have heard nothing. So if anybody has an idea why they're tagging a yearling deer in Riverwoods with both a big antenna, a collar, and a red tag, I would love to know about it. Thank you.
Interesting. We had a huge herd move through here today.
Yeah.
I mean, a herd, you know, like 15 or 20, and then the boys in the end, about 6 or 8 of those. It's quite something. Interesting. I'll ask around.
I've never seen a radio transmitter on a deer.
I don't know. No kidding. Huh. Maybe really wandered far from home. Is there anybody else? Oh,
Can I make a quick comment?
Absolutely.
As a resident? I was at our play lot on Sunday, and it was almost standing room only. There were at least 4 families there, and when I was there, and with my granddaughter, and at least 8 or 9 kids of varying ages, from 1 to what looked like 12 or 13-year-olds on the equipment.
fantastic.
So
Fantastic.
thought I'd pass that
Well,
along.
we just finished the punch list, so Vivian will be back in town, so we're going to be doing some event planning.
Are they going to, just a real quick question, is part of that, did they finish the punch list? Somebody needs to put some sod or something around the outside because it's basically mud once you get past the concrete curb.
Director Witt, do you want to?
That is forthcoming. Baxter Woodman is going to provide us with a seed mix that we can plant around the areas. The punch list is done with the exception of one item, and that's the ropes for the seat. Even though they're functional, they're safe at this point, they were frayed. It looked like they were put up to get the swing up, so we have asked for that to be repaired, and we're just waiting for the part to come in. Once those are changed out, then we're done.
Grand opening event coming. Yes. Tiffany, you want to?
So I wanted to bring to the board's attention a recent change that the Deerfield Park District has made. As of just this recent season, they have disqualified Riverwoods residents from early registration for before and after school programs. Our tax dollars go in to feed this program, and as a resident with small children, I'm pretty passionate about this topic, that it shouldn't be determined on where you live. If your tax dollars are feeding this program, the early bird should get the worm, meaning you need to be by your computer and you need to register early to get your spot. You shouldn't be disqualified or not get early access when our tax dollars are going towards this program. So it's a little disheartening, and I want to bring awareness to this. In fact, I wanted to invite my resident friend here, Paul. Him and his wife have been wonderful and put together a petition that are being signed by local residents that have been impacted. So my purpose today is to bring awareness to this and actually ask for your help in trying to get this changed, because quite frankly, it's just not fair or right if our tax dollars are going to this program that we should be disqualified from early registration.
It's sort of interesting and timely. I've been in contact with Sari Montgomery, who is the chair of the District 109 School Board. And she wrote a very, I referenced her because I had a resident write to me about this subject. And I think I will forward her response around. It is very detailed. It talks about the 2 different programs that are available for after school and then enrichment, and those are 2 very different programs, neither of which are through the school district. One is I believe the Deerfield Park District is involved in those, and I'm going to leave it at that point because it's a very detailed discussion, and I don't want to misstate what I heard. And if you're Mr. Paul Brown, I'm sorry, say again.
I'm a different Paul, not a Paul Brown.
Not a Paul Brown. He wrote to me a number of months ago about this very same thing and has also been to the District 109 School Board. But sorry, Montgomery, if you go to the District 109 website, you will see that she is president of the board. She is a resident of Riverwoods. And this rather detailed message that she sent back to me and to the other resident who asked these questions. I think it would be very useful and very helpful to the board to understand the differentiating features. Our tax dollars don't go to the Deerfield Park District, and those programs are outside of the school district. So, I will send it to you as well, and I hope that's helpful to your effort because, I mean, certainly you want to, you're looking out for your children and you want to do the best you can by them. But I don't know that there's not a real clear path forward. And I don't really believe, and I will check again with council, that the village has any real standing here in this situation. So it's very timely because I know sign up is here, but it's not through the school district. It is through the park district.
How do you plan to share that document? Is that going to be available
I
in a
can,
newsletter?
you know what? I'll ask Sari if I can put it on the newsletter.
Excellent.
I think that might be a great thing. But in the meantime, she's a public official. Her email address is on the website for District 109, and you can write to her directly.
Paul, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I guess.
Can you speak in the microphone, sir, please? Thank you.
Yeah.
Paul Antonoff, A-N-T-O-N-O-V. To kind of add to the point, the program might be hosted by the Park District, but it's hosted in the same very schools that our kids attend. It's one of those things where as Riverwoods residents, we pay, the school taxes, we fund the schools, we pay for the electricity, the gas, et cetera, and the programs are taking place at the very same location. So it's might be organized by the Park District, but it's at the same time a little bit different than a soccer team or a basketball, or chess club. And from a Village of Deerfield standpoint, if our kids are going to get treated as second, class citizens in the school, kind of what are we trying to promote? How are we going to motivate younger families to move into the village and, set up long-lasting roots here when, basic things like after-school childcare for a couple of hours a day becomes really a fight.
As I said, I really don't want to go further with that, but I hope that this message will clear up some of those points for you. I don't want to misstate what was in her message. It was long and it was detailed. And again, I urge you to contact her her directly.
Absolutely.
As a Riverwoods resident and chair of the District 109 School Board. I think that might be helpful.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Are there any comments from the trustees on that? Okay. Anybody else wishing to address the board this evening? Okay, moving forward, committee reports, Finance Committee, Economic Development, Trustee Clayton, please.
No report.
Communications, Trustee Dicken, please.
Yes. Well, our website traffic has gone up a little bit. It's consistent with last year's traffic. We're at 6.2 visitors since the beginning of this year, which is consistent to 5.9 thousand visitors last year. And what I found actually quite interesting is visitors by country, whereas last year the United States was obviously the first country from which our visitors came, followed by Canada, and then of course China and India, which is kind of where the hackers reside. Poland came in second, and with some significant traffic numbers, where United States traffic was at 5.2 thousand and Poland was at 791. I mean, that's a chunk. So I'm kind of curious as to where that's coming from and what are they doing on our website. So unless there's, you know, a Riverwoods resident or an entire association that's taking a vacation and visiting the website, I thought that was really strange. And then in terms of some of the most visited pages on the website, that this is kind of an indication of how users use the website, it was our calendar followed by the building department's page. So Director Witt, I don't know if you have statistics compared to last year as to whether or not we're having more building permits or tree removal permits filled out online versus by hand, but people are going to that page to gather information. So I don't know, perhaps those are pages that could use expansion on specific topics. And then just some general housekeeping has been kind of on my radar. I recently learned that our Apple Maps listing had a wrong URL and a dated address. And then something else that I've worked on was our LinkedIn profile. We were registered as a law enforcement agency instead of a municipality. You know, we didn't have a logo, we didn't have, like, we had a wrong URL. So these are little things which are, you know, not extraordinary accomplishments in terms of making these updates, but, you know, we really need to start looking like a grown-up municipality. So if you guys keep a LinkedIn profile, if you're, you know, part of village staff or an elected official, or if you're on any boards, the profile has been updated, so please link to it. It will really make us look like a grown-up page. And if you know anybody whose terms have ended, please remind them to reflect that on their LinkedIn profiles. We have some trustees who haven't updated their profiles, who are no longer on the board. That's all I've got. I don't know.
Real funny. Are there any other questions or comments for Trustee Dicken? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Woodlands Ecology Legal, Trustee Eastman, please.
Sure. So the mayor and I met with our county board representative, Ann Main, last week to discuss the path going forward with the South Lake Mosquito Abatement District and what Riverwoods representation would be on that board. Eventually, once we get some things cleared up with the county, we'll be putting out interest of anyone in the broader community. We've already had some people approach us that might want to serve on that board and be the Riverwoods representative, but we're going to put that out for a broader expression of interest. And we also discussed some other village issues with Ann to get her up to speed on what's been happening. That's it.
Are there any questions or comments? Trustee Jamerson?
I just have a comment. I don't think it's, I'm not sure if it's for Andy or for.
Just say it.
On Google Maps, and I've brought this to Ann's attention in the past, there is a pin dropped in the middle of the woods, literally, that says Lake County Forest Preserve. Okay. That appears to make it that there is a parking area at the end of Greenbrier Lane, which is in our subdivision. And we've had an unbelievable number of people come to the end of that street, which is a dead end, to try and find a place to park and actually go up to residents' homes looking for a place to park.
Really? Is that why you guys have that sign?
That's why we have a sign.
I always wondered why that sign was there.
That's why we have a sign that says there's no public parking, but nobody reads signs.
Right.
So if you could, next time you meet with her, ask her if she could please have the Lake County Forest Preserve move that pin someplace else.
I will follow up
We would
with
really
her.
appreciate it, because I've asked her and I didn't get a reasonable.
Respond to that. So if you go to where that pin is.
I tried that.
And you could suggest an edit.
I did.
Google will typically accept it.
They didn't. Because I did try that. But if you go to a map and you type in Lake County Forest Preserve, that pin will show up. Try it. And it's not, you have to be careful. I think it's on Google Maps. Anyways, if you could do that, I don't want to belabor the point.
Sure.
Wow. Are there any other comments? Trustee Dickon, okay, Trustee Eastman. Moving on, land use and roads, Trustee Hollander, please.
Yeah, I have 3 items. One is there looks to be a delay in the Deerfield Road project by 1 year. Looks like it's going to be delayed 1 year. It's not official yet, but
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
that's what I've been told, which would then put the utilities somewhere in fall of '25 instead of fall of '24, so everything else gets moved out. Second thing, I just want to notify the board that Riverwoods Road is going to be repaved, and they promised that they will not start the repaving until Deerfield Road is completed. I don't know that you can take that to the bank, but that's what they've said. And the third item is something that we'll have to deal with when Riverwoods Road, that project becomes a little bit more clear, is whether or not we want to have a path either put in so it's a full bicycle and pedestrian path, and whether or not we want to do any repair work on the existing path. I went by day before yesterday, and there's only really 2 or 3 sections that are in bad shape. It's pretty good otherwise. But it will be faced with the same thing we did on Deerfield, where we repaired Deerfield Road's path, knowing that it was going to be replaced in a few years. We may be faced with that same issue. So that's going to be an expensive item. I've asked our engineers to at least give us a ballpark estimate of what that might be. Those are the 3 updates.
Are there any questions or comments for Trustee Hollander? Okay, moving on, buildings and stormwater, Trustee Jamerson.
There is no building report this month at the moment, and because
No,
Vivian's-
she's in, yes.
Yeah. So when it gets here, I'll share it. There is a stormwater committee meeting tomorrow at 1:30 here at the Village Hall.
That's all I have.
Okay, are there any questions for Trustee Jamerson? Okay, community services, Trustee Smith, please.
Yeah, sure. So once again, thank you very much to the RRA for the Arts and Riverwoods report. That was very beneficial. I was there along with some other trustees and found the event wonderful like it has been in the past. So thanks again, and we appreciate the support. And then on the RPC side, we're also working through some other things, including sustainability, which some of the trustees have expressed interest in participating in, not as village elected officials, but as residents. So looking forward to that as well. So that's what I have at the moment. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Trustee Smith? Okay, seeing no reason to go into executive session, the date and time for our next meeting is March 20th. This is a Wednesday. It is not our normal Tuesday meeting because of the primary election. This is an election site, so we're having it the next day. So note that on your calendar. Regular meeting, March 20th at 7:30. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you so very much. Thank you.
We could move the pin location.